The sun had just dipped below the horizon in the sleepy town of Vesper Ridge, casting a warm amber glow over the dense forest that bordered it. The streets were quiet, with only a few scattered townsfolk finishing their evening routines. The air was crisp, almost refreshing an evening like any other in this quiet corner of the world. Then the sky ripped open, a jagged tear of light, blinding white and deep purple, split the firmament above, illuminating the entire town. People froze. In place, their gazes upward, unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. The sound that accompanied the event wasn't thunderous, but rather a deep hum. Like a tuning fork resonating through the very air, vibrating in their chests. The sky shifted in color, swirling like oil on water as the tear expanded, forming a massive portal. Adam Holt, standing on the edge of the town square, felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. The historian, always intrigued by the mysteries of ancient civilizations, was both fascinated and unnerved. He knew of such things, at least in theory legends passed down through generations. But to see one in real life, to have it unfold above him, threatening to tear the fabric of reality, it was beyond anything he'd imagined. "Is that?" whispered Alyssa King, a local historian and Adam's closest friend. She had been studying the ancient texts of their ancestors, and her pale face spoke volumes of the horror she was processing. Adam nodded slowly, his mind racing. "It's the portal." They had both read the same ancient manuscripts, cryptic warnings about an opening in the sky, a tear that would bring something far darker into the world. But it had always seemed distant, like a myth from another age. Now, standing in its shadow, Adam felt something he couldn't shake, a sense of inevitability. The portal flickered, its swirling colors shifting to deep violet, then turquoise. It was pulsing with a strange rhythm, like a heartbeat. A cold breeze swept through the town square, but the air was thick with static, as if the laws of physics themselves were bending. Adam turned to Alyssa, his voice barely a whisper. "We need to figure out what this is, and fast. I have a bad feeling about this." As the two of them made their way to the library, a building they both knew would house the crucial information they need, a crowd had gathered in the square. Some were staring at the portal with wide eyes, mouths agape, while others murmured about it being a divine sign. No one could quite explain what was happening, but no one dared look away either. Suddenly, a screeching noise pierced the air, high-pitched and unnatural. It wasn't the noise of a bird or an animal. It was something else entirely, something synthetic, like metal scraping against metal. A dark shape began to emerge from the center of the portal, a shadow, large and formless, but with glowing eyes that pierced through the darkness. The shape's outline flickered and warped as though it didn't belong to this world. Gasps filled the air as the crowd recoiled. Some took a step back, others froze, and a few tried to flee in panic. Adam's heart raced. This wasn't supposed to happen, not yet. The curse had always been described as an unseen force, dormant but incredibly dangerous, waiting for the right moment to awaken. But there was more. The sky above seemed to darken, the swirling colors of the portal intensifying. With each pulse, the creatures inside, now visible as shadowy figures, began to appear. The air grew colder. A low hum reverberated from the center of the portal, and it seemed as if the entire town was being pulled toward it, as if the very fabric of reality was stretching to accommodate the foreign beings emerging from the rift. Alyssa grabbed Adam's arm, her fingers icy with fear. "What do we do?" Adam's mind raced. "We don't know enough yet, but there's something about this portal, something tied to the ancient curse. We need to find answers now." Adam's grandfather had told him stories of an ancient civilization, a people that once tried to harness the power of the stars and the portal. They had vanished, but their curse had remained, lying dormant until now. This wasn't just a coincidence. The opening of the portal was a sign the curse was awakening. And as much as Adam hated to admit it, he knew the truth. This was no accident. Turning quickly, he led Alyssa toward the library, heart pounding. They didn't have much time inside. They searched through the ancient scrolls and texts, many of them written in languages lost to time. It wasn't long before they uncovered something disturbing. The Bloodstone, powerful artifact tied to the portal, was the key to stopping it. But the Bloodstone had been lost centuries ago. Where do we find it? Alyssa asked, her voice tremulous but determined. What happened to it? Adam skimmed through the text, his eyes scanning for any hint of its location. It was hidden. Away, buried deep beneath the earth, in the ruins of an ancient city. The same city that vanished centuries ago when the curse was first unleashed. Alyssa's gaze hardened. So we go after it. Before Adam could respond, a loud crash echoed outside. They rushed to the window and saw a massive creature, Shadeburn, stepping through the portal. Its form shimmered with darkness, its body flickering between dimensions, distorting the air around it. The creature's eyes glowed, a deep, unsettling red. And it roared in a voice that echoed through the streets, sending a shockwave of fear into the townsfolk. The creature locked eyes with Adam. And in that moment, Adam realized something horrifying. The Shadeborn were drawn to him. They knew he was the one who could stop them. The Bloodstone, the portal, the curse, they were all connected to him now. Alyssa grabbed his arm, her face pale. We need to stop this. We need to stop them. Adam's expression hardened. We will. But we need to find the Bloodstone first before it's too late. As the first Shadeborn rampaged through the town square, Adam and Alyssa gathered their resolve. They had no choice. They had to find the artifact, unravel the curse, and close the portal before the world was consumed by darkness. The journey ahead would be dangerous. But Adam knew one thing for certain. Humanity was about to face its greatest test. Cliffhanger, the portal flickers again, and more creatures' massive, shadowy horrors begin to emerge. The world is changing, and the clock is ticking. The town of Vesper Ridge was in chaos. People screamed as the Shadeborn creature, its form flickering in and out of existence, crashed through the town square, sending debris flying in every direction. Buildings trembled, and windows shattered, as the beast's massive, shadowy claws swiped through the air. Its red eyes glowed with an eerie intensity, locking onto Adam with an unspoken command. The portal behind it hummed ominously, its energy pulsing with a malevolent rhythm. Alyssa grabbed Adam's wrist and yanked him back from the window. We need to go, now. But Adam was rooted in place, staring at the creature and the ever-widening rift in the sky. The curse had begun. The world was unraveling in front of them, and they had no time to waste. We can't just run. Adam's voice was tight with urgency. His words trailed off as he noticed something odd. The air seemed to shimmer around the Shadeborn creature, distorting reality. The creature moved as if in slow motion, its form warping as it took another step forward. Adam felt a strange connection to the rift, a magnetic pull that both terrified and beckoned him. His mind swam with memories of his grandfather's warnings that now made a terrifying amount of sense. Alyssa didn't wait for him to finish. She grabbed his shoulder, shaking him out of his trance. Focus, Adam. We need to move before we're next. Reluctantly, Adam tore his gaze away from the creature and followed her through the library's narrow aisles. They hurried to the back of the room, where a series of ancient tomes were stacked. Alyssa grabbed the map of the ancient ruins they had found earlier. The markings were faded, but the symbols on the map matched those of the Bloodstone, the artifact. They needed to stop the curse. The ruins are in the Forsaken Expanse, Adam muttered, skimming over the parchment. A desert, miles from here, known for its treacherous conditions. "But we don't have a choice," Alyssa said, her voice tinged with fear. "We have to find it before the Shadeborn do." A deep growl from outside interrupted them. The Shadeborn commander had arrived. The beast's roar sent another shockwave through the town, rattling the shelves in the library. It was only a matter of time before the army of Shadeborn would flood through the portal. Adam felt the weight of his responsibility settle over him. The portal had not only opened, but the curse it carried had already started to warp the world. Around them, from the visions he'd experienced earlier, he knew the ancient civilization that had once used the portal had unleashed a curse that had slowly spread. Across dimensions, waiting for the right time to reawaken. They had no time to lose. They had to find the Bloodstone, no matter the cost. Adam turned to Alyssa, his jaw set with determination. "Let's go." They bolted for the back door of the library, where Yark, Alyssa's former colleague and a skilled soldier, was waiting. With a small group of survivors, Yarek's eyes scanned the horizon, watching as the Shadeborn creatures began to congregate around the town square. Their dark forms spreading like a plague. His military-grade rifle slung across his back, he nodded to Adam. "Ready for this?" Adam clenched his fists. "We don't have a choice." The group scrambled into a jeep, and they raced toward the Forsaken Expanse, the winds whipping around them as they sped through the forest. Behind them, the sky above seemed to pulse, its colors shifting and deepening with every passing second. And the distant hum of the portal seemed to resonate in Adam's chest. As they drove, Adam's mind raced. He had heard stories about the Forsaken, expanse of vast desert where nothing grew and no one returned. It was said to be the final resting place of the ancient city that once wielded the power of the Bloodstone. According to the texts, the city's destruction had been swift and brutal when the curse had first been unleashed. Its people twisted into the Shadeborn creatures they now faced. "I hope you brought more than just a map," Yarek called out, his voice thick with dry humor. Adam gave a short, grim laugh. "We'll need more than just a map to survive this." As they neared the edge of the Forsaken Expanse, the landscape grew increasingly desolate. The trees and grass had long disappeared, replaced by jagged rock formations and towering sand dunes. The wind carried a haunting wail, as though the land itself mourned the ancient curse. The jeep came to a screeching halt just outside the edge of the desert. In the distance, Adam could make out the faint outlines of crumbled buildings, half buried in the sand. The ancient city was just ahead, but so was the danger. Alyssa looked out over the expanse, her face drawn with concern. "We're not the only ones looking for the Bloodstone," she said, her eyes scanning the horizon. "The Shadeborn know we're coming." The air felt thick with tension as they disembarked, weapons in hand, and began their march toward the ruins. The sky above had grown darker, and the air itself seemed to warp with unseen pressure. Adam's pulse quickened. Something was wrong. "I've got a bad feeling about this," Yarek muttered, his eyes darting back and forth. Alyssa nodded in agreement. "The curse. It's not just about the Bloodstone, the portal, the creatures, it's all connected." Adam swallowed hard, trying to push the mounting fear to the back of his mind. He glanced at his companions, his voice low but determined. "Stay close. Whatever happens, we're not leaving without it." As they neared the ruins, a sudden howl echoed through the desert. A creature similar to the Shadeborn, but far larger and more menacing suddenly appeared from the shadows of the crumbled buildings. Its form shimmered with the same unnatural darkness as the portal, its red eyes locking onto Adam with an almost predatory intensity. The hunt had begun. Cliffhanger. The creature charged at them with terrifying speed, and the sound of its footsteps reverberated through the desert like a drumbeat. Adam and his team braced for impact, knowing that every second they wasted in this cursed land could mean the difference between life and death. The desert was eerily silent, save for the thunderous pounding of the creature's feet as it charged toward Adam and his group. The air itself seemed to thicken, pressing down on them like a physical weight, as if the desert itself was a living, breathing entity eager to devour them. "Take cover," Yarek shouted, pulling Alyssa toward a large rock formation. Adam hesitated for a split second, his gaze locked on the creature. It was massive, its form a swirling amalgamation of darkness and shifting shadows, its glowing red eyes burning with an unnatural intelligence. The creature's massive claws scraped the earth as it barreled forward, sending dust and sand flying in all directions. Adam's mind raced. He didn't have time to think about how they had arrived at this point, nor did he have time to wonder about the mysteries of the curse or the ancient city. The only thing that mattered now was survival. As the creature closed the distance, Adam grabbed his rifle and fired. The rounds collided with the creature's shadowy hide, but they barely seemed to register. The beast's form rippled, bending reality around it as if the laws of nature no longer applied. The shots passed through it like light through water, leaving no mark. "It's no use," Alyssa cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We need to get to the ruins. The bloodstone might be the only thing that can stop it." Adam's heart pounded as the creature lunged. He grabbed Alyssa's arm and dragged her toward the ruins, hoping against hope that they would find some way to defend themselves. Yarek followed close behind, his rifle aimed at the approaching creature. But it was clear that they weren't going to win this fight with bullets alone. The creature bellowed in rage, its roar shaking the ground beneath their feet. They were close now, just yards from the entrance to the ancient city, but the creature was almost upon them. Adam's pulse quickened, the pressure of the situation suffocating him. They had no time to waste. Without thinking, Adam lunged for a large, jagged rock near the entrance of the ruins. The earth beneath it groaned, and the rock seemed to shift slightly as he touched it. A secret passage, hidden from view, revealed itself. The shadows surrounding it seemed to pull away, as if guiding them into the heart of the ruins. "In here?" Adam shouted, pulling Alyssa and Yarek toward the hidden opening. The creature was almost upon them, its massive shadow now covering the ground as it prepared to strike. But just as Adam and his companions ducked into the opening, the creature howled in frustration, unable to reach them. The ground trembled, and the opening seemed to seal itself behind them. For a moment, everything went still. The only sound was their labored breathing, echoing in the silence of the hidden passage. "We're safe for now," Rek muttered, looking over his shoulder as the entrance closed completely. The feeling of imminent doom still hung in the air. But for the moment, they were beyond the reach of the creature. Adam turned to face the darkness ahead. The tunnel they were in was ancient, its stone walls covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly, even in the absence of light. As they moved deeper into the ruins, a sense of foreboding crept over him. Every step they took felt like it was drawing them closer to something far greater than a mere creature, closer to the darkness that had long been sealed away. "It's not just the creature we have to worry about," Lyssa said, her voice low and steady, but laced with fear. "This place, it's alive in a way. The curse, it's more than just a portal. It's a sentient force, a consciousness tied to the bloodstone. We need to be careful." Adam nodded grimly. He had read the same texts she had. The bloodstone wasn't just a tool or artifact, it was a key. The ancient civilization that had once ruled here had used the stone to channel the power of the portal. But in doing so, they had inadvertently awakened a curse that was tied to the very fabric of reality itself. The stone was now the only way to stop it. But reaching it was another matter entirely. The passage led them deeper into the heart of the ruins, and the air grew colder with every step. Soon, the passage opened up into a large chamber, its ceiling lost in shadows. At the center of the room stood a stone pedestal, and upon it, bathed in an eerie, soft glow, a bloodstone. But Adam wasn't the only one who had noticed the stone. From the depths of the shadows came a low growl, one that sent a chill down his spine. "We're not alone," Yarrick whispered, his hand gripping his rifle tightly. Adam's gaze swept the room. Figures, shadowy, indistinct, shapes slowly, began to emerge from the darkness, moving with unnatural speed. There were more creatures here, guardians, perhaps, of the bloodstone. Each one flickered in and out of existence, their glowing eyes burning into Adam and his group as if they were being judged by some unseen force. "This is it," Adam muttered. "The heart of the curse." Alyssa stepped forward, her hand hovering near the bloodstone. "We need to destroy it," she said urgently, her voice strained. "If we don't," but before she could finish her thought, the shadowy figures lunged. Yarrick fired first, his shots ringing out in the enclosed space, but the creatures seemed to absorb the bullets, their forms distorting around them. One of the figures rushed toward Alyssa, its claws aimed for her throat. "No!" Adam shouted, sprinting forward and slamming into the creature. His body collided with the shadowy form, and for a split second he felt the searing cold of the creature's touch. It was like touching the void itself, an emptiness that threatened to consume him whole. He shoved it away, his body trembling from the contact, but the creature didn't relent. More emerged from the shadows, closing in from every angle. "This is it," Alyssa gasped, her hand still inches from the bloodstone. "We either take it or perish." With a roar, Adam drew his bladed ancient weapon passed down from his grandfather and charged at the nearest creature. The battle for the bloodstone had begun. Cliffhanger, as Adam and Alyssa fought off the guardians. The bloodstone suddenly pulsed, sending a shockwave of dark energy through the room. The curse had awoken fully, and there was no turning back now. The chamber was filled with the sounds of combat gunfire, the shrieking howls of the shadowy creatures, and the unmistakable clash of metal on dark, shifting flesh. Adam's heart pounded as he swung his blade at the nearest creature, its form flickering as it dodged his strike. The edge of his weapon sliced through the air, but the creature's body seemed to warp around it, as though it didn't fully exist in this reality. "We need to hurry," Alyssa shouted, ducking under the claw of one of the creatures, her fingers brushing the bloodstone. It pulsed beneath her touch, its eerie glow intensifying with each moment. Adam's mind raced. The guardians were relentless, but the more important concern was the bloodstone itself. Every time it pulsed, the air around them seemed to grow heavier. The curse was feeding on the very fabric of their world, and each heartbeat of the stone pulled them deeper into its gravity. With a growl, Adam swung his sword again, this time catching one of the creatures square in its chest. The blade passed through its body, leaving a rippling distortion in its wake. The creature howled, but instead of dying, it began to collapse in on itself, its form unraveling into a swirl of darkness, vanishing into the air. "Nice shot," Yarrick called from across the room, firing another round from his rifle. The bullet exploded into the shadow of one of the figures, but like the others, it was absorbed, the bullet's impact fizzling out like static on a radio. "We can't keep this up," Alyssa cried, frustration in her voice as another creature lunged toward her. She kicked it back, her foot sinking into its distorted, shadowy mass. "We need to stop the stone from feeding." Adam gritted his teeth, rushing toward her. "We don't have much time." He could see the shape of the bloodstone clearly now. It wasn't just a gemet, it was a living, breathing thing, its surface rippling like the surface of water disturbed by a stone. It had a pulse, a life force of its own, and it was feeding on the energy of the curse. The entire room seemed to bend in response to it, the shadows growing deeper and more oppressive as the stone's power spread. Alyssa stretched out her hand, fingers trembling. "We have to destroy it. This is the heart of the curse." Adam reached for his rifle, but his gut twisted with uncertainty. He remembered the ancient texts that spoke of the stone's true power. It could destroy the curse. Yes, but it could also bind the person who wielded it to the portal's will. Destroying it wouldn't just break the curse, would reshape everything. The person who touched it would become part of the curse itself, an anchor for the darkness that had been sealed away so long ago. "No!" Alyssa shouted, wrenching her hand away from the bloodstone as a wave of energy surged through the chamber. The stone's light flared brighter, almost blinding, as it seemed to sense her intent. But it was too late. The moment her hand had made contact, the room shuddered, and the guardians paused, as if they were waiting for something. The air grew still, too still, as if time itself had frozen in place. Adam could hear his heartbeat, loud and frantic in his ears. Then, the bloodstone cracked. The sound was like a thunderclap, reverberating through the chamber, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. The crack ran along the surface of the stone, spidering out in every direction, and with a loud boom, the stone exploded into blinding light. Adam raised his arm to shield his eyes as the light expanded outward, stretching out into the room like a cosmic wave, distorting everything it touched. A force, a dark presence, filled the room, a force that seemed to stretch into every corner of the world. For a moment, Adam thought he could see faces, thousands of faces whirling in the light, distorted and contorted in agony. The very air seemed to pulse with the weight of their suffering. But then, as quickly as it began, the light vanished. The portal behind them hummed. Its presence now felt more acutely, like a heartbeat at the edge of their consciousness. Alyssa staggered back, her face pale as she stared at the cracked stone. What did I do?" Adam grabbed her arm, pulling her away from the remains of the bloodstone. "You touched it. You didn't destroy it." Yarick cursed under his breath. "We don't have time to figure this out." "They're coming." Indeed, the guardians were shifting again, their form solidifying and growing more solid, more real with each passing second. The cracked bloodstone was no longer glowing. It's now a dead weight, its energy dissipating into the very fabric of the air. But the curse it had been feeding was far from finished. "What the hell did we just unleash?" Adam said through gritted teeth, scanning the room. The once eerie, silent ruins now felt alive with menace, as if the entire place had been waiting for this moment. Alyssa turned to Adam, her face contorted with guilt and fear. "I thought if I just touched it, we could break the curse. But now, I can feel it." She closed her eyes briefly, as if listening to something far away. When she opened them again, her expression was filled with dread. "It's alive. The curse, it's not just a force, it's a mind, and it's awake." Adam felt the air grow colder, a shiver running up his spine. The portal hummed, vibrating as if it was alive. It was calling to them, but then something unexpected happened. The shadowy creatures around them paused, their movements halted in midair. The air grew thick with tension, as if the entire world were holding its breath. The portal shuddered, its swirling energy spinning faster and faster. A voice, deep, ancient, and otherworldly, echoed through the chamber, reverberating in Adam's bones. "You have awakened me." The voice was both a command and a whisper, like the murmur of an ancient god, powerful and unstoppable. "Now, you will serve." Adam's heart pounded in his chest as the world around him seemed to collapse in on itself. The curse was no longer an entity, was a consciousness, and now it was aware of them. The stakes had just risen higher than he could have imagined. Cliffhanger. As the portal opened wider, tendrils of darkness began to reach out, twisting into the room. The creatures moved again, faster now, converging on Adam and his team. They had awakened something far worse than they could have ever anticipated. The chamber seemed to close in around Adam as the voice of the curse reverberated through the walls, shaking the very foundation of the ruins. The tendrils of darkness were growing, twisting into the room like the fingers of a vast, unseen force. Adam's heart raced in his chest, each beat pounding in his ears as the creature's guardians of the Bloodstone moved once again, faster and more deliberate. "We're out of time," Yarrick yelled, his eyes wide with panic. "We have to get out of here now." Alyssa, still reeling from the after effects of touching the Bloodstone, staggered backward, her face pale and stricken. "It's too late to leave. The curse, it's already spreading. We can't just run. It won't stop until it has us. Until it has all of us." Adam's mind raced. Alyssa was right. The portal behind them was no longer a passive rift. It was a doorway pulsing with a dark energy that threatened to collapse all of reality in its wake. And they had just made the terrible mistake of awakening its sentience. He swung his rifle from his back and checked its chamber. The bullets wouldn't do a thing against the creatures, but he needed something to slow them down. If only they could reach the heart of the ruins, the chamber deep within, where the portal's core pulsed like a beating heart. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the dark tendrils reached out, brushing against the walls, almost as if searching for something, searching for them. "We need to get to the central chamber," Adam said, his voice urgent. "The portal's energy is weakest there. If we can disable it, we might have a chance." Yarrick shot a glance over his shoulder, his rifle poised and ready. "And how do you plan on doing that?" "We're running out of options." The creatures were closing in. They were getting faster, more aggressive as the portal's energy coursed through them. Adam could see it now. They weren't just guardians. They were part of the curse. They existed as conduits for the curse's will, bound to the portal. Destroying them would only make the curse stronger, as it would draw on their energy to fuel its hunger. Alyssa stepped forward, her face grim but resolute. "We need to sever the connection between the Bloodstone and the portal. But doing that," she hesitated, her eyes flicking to the dark expanse of the room. "We'll need the Keitha artifact that binds the two together." Adam turned sharply. "The key? Where is it?" She looked toward the far corner of the room, where an ancient altar lay, half buried in dust. Atop it rested a stone orb, glowing faintly with an ethereal light. The key? It was the only way to disconnect the portal from the curse and stop the creatures from overwhelming them. But there was no time. The first of the creatures lunged, its claws cutting through the air with a shriek that made Adam's blood run cold. Without thinking, he fired, the rifle's roar deafening in the confined space. The shot passed through the creature's form, but left no mark, only the echo of the bullet's impact. The creature flinched and growled, but it wasn't deterred. "We need to move," Yarrick shouted. He was already sprinting toward the altar, his weapon raised. "Cover me." The creatures were closing in, but Adam and Alyssa weren't far behind. Adam's mind raced. Each second felt like an eternity as he calculated their chances. If they could reach the key, they might be able to disable the portal, but with the curse now awake and spreading, the odds were slim. Alyssa glanced over her shoulder, her voice shaking with determination. "Adam, I think I can feel it. The curse, it's trying to reach us." Adam gritted his teeth. "Focus. We have to stop this." They moved swiftly, but the shadows were moving faster. One of the creatures slithered toward them, its claws clicking against the stone as it advanced, was almost upon Alyssa when Yarrick fired another round, causing it to dissipate into shadow, only to reform a moment later. Adam's pulse quickened. They needed to be faster. With a final surge of energy, Adam reached the altar. The stone orb lay there, pulsating with the same eerie glow as the portal. It seemed to hum with a life of its own, its vibrations syncing with the rhythmic energy of the curse. If he didn't sever the link between the two, there was no telling how much damage this dark force could do. He snatched the orb from its pedestal, feeling an immediate shock of power run through him. The curse reacted instantly. The room seemed to lurch as the air grew thick, and the dark tendrils reached further into the room, pulling everything toward the portal. A sharp pain lanced through Adam's skull as the orb pulsed in his hand. The voices of the cursed whispers echoed in his mind, taunting him. They were aware of him, aware of their presence. And for the first time, Adam felt a terrible certainty that the portal wanted something more than just his life. He glanced at Alyssa, whose eyes were wide with terror as the curse reached out to her. The weight of the orb in his hand seemed to increase with each passing second, as though the curse itself was trying to consume him. "This isn't just a key," Alyssa gasped. It's a part of the portal itself." Suddenly, the ground beneath them cracked, and the tendrils of the curse erupted from the stone floor, wrapping around their legs and pulling them toward the opening portal. The orb in Adam's hand throbbed, growing hotter with each moment. Adam gritted his teeth. He could feel the power inside the orb, fighting him. It wanted to control him, to bind him to the portal. But Adam wasn't going to let it. Not now. The cursed guardians were closing in again, their forms shifting and expanding, their eyes glowing bright with hunger. The key was supposed to sever the portal's hold, but it was now drawing the curse in even further. "Do it," Yarrick shouted. From behind them, firing at the shadows, trying to slow their advance. "Make it stop." Adam's fingers tightened around the orb. This was the moment. But the orb felt alive with intent. And as he raised it high to strike the portal, he realized something. He wasn't just fighting for survival now. He was fighting for control over something far darker than any of them could have imagined. Cliffhanger, the orb's energy surged, and the room trembled violently. The voice of the curse spoke in its tone, more insistent now, more powerful. "You cannot destroy me." And just before the orb's light erupted, Adam heard it clearly. "I will make you mine." The darkness was closing in. Would Adam be able to break free? Would the curse claim him as its next anchor? The world seemed to collapse around Adam as the orb in his hand pulsed with an unearthly light, vibrating with the force of the curse that threatened to devour him. The dark tendrils of the portal writhed like serpents, lashing out at him, tugging at his limbs, pulling him toward the ever-growing rift. He could feel the cold emptiness of the portal's pull-a-hunger that wasn't just physical, but mental. A gnawing feeling in the back of his skull that whispered promises of immortality and power in exchange for his soul. Alyssa screamed behind him, her voice barely audible over the chaos. She was struggling against the tendrils, her face contorted in pain as they constricted around her, pulling her closer to the darkness. Yarrick was still firing his weapon, but it was useless. The bullets passed through the shadowy creatures with no effect, leaving only the hollow echo of their impact. "Adam, do something." Alyssa's voice was frantic, full of fear. "We have to stop this now." The orb's power surged again, and for a split second, Adam could see visions flashes of ancient, long-forgotten times. He saw the civilization that had once controlled the portal, a race of beings that had understood the power of the bloodstone and the curse it held. He saw them perform rituals, opening the rift again and again, binding themselves to the dark entity that lived within the portal. But they had made a grave mistake. They had sacrificed their world, their people, to the entity that now sought to claim him and his companions. The voice of the curse echoed in his mind once again, louder this time, as if it were speaking directly to him. "You cannot fight me." I am eternal. You will be mine, just as they were. Adam's breath hitched. He could feel the weight of the curse pushing down on him, the ancient consciousness of the entity clawing at his mind. But he resisted, pushing back against the psychic pressure. He clenched the orb tighter, the raw power within it threatening to explode at any moment. It wasn't just an object of control, was the key to understanding, the very heart of the curse itself. I won't let you in. Adam grunted, his voice low, steely with defiance. Alyssa was almost lost in the tendrils. Her body pulled into the growing vortex of darkness. Adam could see the fear in her eyes. She knew that the orb was their last hope. He had no time to waste. With a final, desperate effort, he hurled the orb into the air, praying it would connect with the heart of the portal. The orb rose, glowing brilliantly, its energy thrumming with raw power. For a brief moment, time itself seemed to slow down. Adam watched as the orb flared, sending out pulses of light that tore through the shadowy creatures, making them recoil. The air around them vibrated with a force that was both terrible and magnificent. But just as the orb was about to collide with the center of the portal, the curse responded in a way Adam hadn't anticipated. The tendrils surged forward, twisting violently, and the orb's energy began to flicker. The curse's will wrapped itself around the orb like a vice, trying to consume it, to absorb its power and bind it to itself. No. Adam shouted, his heart racing. Don't let it take it. Alyssa, her eyes wide with fear, shouted something indistinct, her voice swallowed by the growing noise of the vortex. But Adam didn't hear her. He couldn't. The orb was now surrounded by dark energy, its pulse becoming erratic. Like a heart on the verge of failure, suddenly the portal ripped open wider, and a wave of pure darkness shot out from the rift, crashing toward them with terrifying force. The tendrils lashed around Adam and Alyssa, dragging them backward. It felt like the very air was being sucked into the rift, like gravity had reversed and they were being pulled toward the void. The ground beneath, their feet trembled violently as the true form of the curse began to emerge from the portal. A swirling mass of shadows, barely recognizable as anything solid, but pulsing with an intelligent, malevolent presence. It was not a being, they were many, an entire legion of dark forces, minds bound together by the curse's will. It's happening. Alyssa gasped, her voice breaking through the chaos. The curse is unleashing itself. Adam felt the tendrils of the curse tightening around him, but in that moment, something within him snapped. The sheer weight of the portal's power, the feeling of being suffocated by this ancient evil ignited a spark of resolve deep inside him. In that moment, he knew what he had to do. Alyssa was being pulled toward the vortex, her body twisting. In midair, without thinking, Adam reached out, his fingers grazing her arm. Hold on. With a strength born of desperation, he yanked her back, pulling her away from the edge of the rift. But the darkness was relentless. He could feel it trying to consume him, wrapping around his limbs like 1,000 serpents. But Adam wasn't going to give up. He wasn't going to let the curse win, not now, not when they were so close to ending it. He grabbed the orb once more, clenching it tight in both hands. Alyssa, help me. Adam shouted, we have to focus our will. Now. Alyssa nodded, her face pale, but she reached out and grasped the orb, her fingers touching his. The orb responded instantly, its energy crackling between them, like lightning. Together, they focused. Together, they reached for the core of the curse. The portal shrieked, a sound that split the air and shook the very foundation of the ruins. The orb began to glow brighter, its light now shaping into something far more powerful. The dark tendrils recoiled, as though something within the orb was now fighting back. A force they couldn't control. This is it. Adam shouted, we can stop it. But even as they pushed back against the curse, something felt wrong. The orb was too powerful. The energy inside it was threatening to overload, pushing the limits of their control. And, as Adam and Alyssa focused all their strength into severing the portal's connection, a thought crossed Adam's mind. What would happen to them if they succeeded? Would they be free, or would they become the next anchors for the curse itself? Cliffhanger. Just as the orb's light reached its peak, a violent shockwave burst from the portal, sending Adam and Alyssa flying backward. The darkness began to pull everything into the rift. In that instant, Adam realized the awful truth. To stop the curse, they might have to sacrifice everything they knew. Would they survive, or would they become part of the curse forever? The shockwave tore through the ruins like a hurricane, lifting Adam and Alyssa off their feet and slamming them into the cold, jagged stone walls. The air was thick with the roaring sound of the curse, a cacophony of shrieking whispers and howls that filled their minds, each voice trying to break their resolve to bend them to its will. The orb in Adam's hand pulsed like a living heartbeat, its light dimming but still blazing with raw energy. Alyssa groaned beside him, disoriented but conscious. Adam could feel the heat of the orb in his grip, still thrumming with the power to undo everything: the curse, the portal, their fate. Alyssa, ... Are you okay? Adam managed, his voice hoarse as he pushed himself up from the ground. The darkness that had been creeping across the room seemed to retreat a little as the orb's power pushed against it. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Alyssa blinked up at him, her face pale, streaked with dirt and sweat. But she nodded. I'm still here. She grasped his arm, pulling herself up. What now, Adam? The orbit's still reacting to the portal. The ground trembled again, and a black tendril shot out from the rift, slashing through the air with a deafening crack. It wrapped around a nearby stone pillar, crushing it into dust. Adam's eyes widened as he realized the curse was growing, stronger with every passing moment. The darkness was spreading, swallowing the light from the orb, bit by bit, turning their world back into chaos. He gritted his teeth, trying to steady himself as the orb's energy surged again. We have to finish this. Need to sever the link once and for all. Alyssa stepped forward, her eyes narrowed, determined but tinged with fear. Oh, whiff. We fail? Adam interrupted. There's no way out. But we don't have a choice. Anymore, we're in this together. He looked back at the rift, where the darkness was reaching out, tearing apart the air. The energy from the portal was now completely unstoppable, each moment that passed giving it more power. Adam felt the weight of the situation press against his chest. If the curse fully broke free, there would be nothing left. It would consume their world and spread beyond it. The orb in his hand flickered again, as though it were pulling something out of him. He felt his body grow heavy, as if the very essence of the curse was feeding off his will, trying to drag him into the abyss. Alyssa was right. This wasn't just a battle for survival. This was a fight for control over their fates, over the world itself. I think I can still feel the core, Alyssa said, her voice a whisper, her eyes locked onto the orb. The portal's energy. It's tied to the stone somehow. If we can force the orb's light to penetrate it fully, we might be able to reverse everything. Adam shook his head. It's not just the light. The portal's alive, Alyssa. We need to break its connection to the bloodstone and stop it from spreading. If we can't sever that bond, this will never end. Alyssa swallowed hard, her fingers brushing against the orb. But Adam, I don't think we can control it anymore. The orbits. It's changing. It wants to absorb us. Adam's heart raced, but he didn't let her words break his focus. We don't have much time. The curse is already trying to take us into the rift. If we're going to do this, it has to be now. He could feel if the curse was growing stronger. The air around him was growing thick with malevolent energy. And every step they took toward the heart of the portal made him feel like they were being suffocated by it. His vision blurred for a moment, and he felt the terrible pull of the rift again, urging him to step forward, to give in, to join the darkness. But he didn't. He couldn't. He locked eyes with Alyssa. "You've got this. We have to." Alyssa nodded, her eyes full of pain and resolve. "I won't let it take us." She raised her hands, her fingers wrapping around the orb, pulling it closer to the portal's edge. The air between them and the rift shimmered with a violent energy, the tension rising to unbearable levels. Every inch, the orb moved toward the rift, the darker the atmosphere became, as though the very air were thinning. Suddenly, a new wave of darkness surged from the rift, more powerful than before, and it slammed into them like a wall. The orb flickered, its light dimming for a brief moment as the curse tried to overwhelm it. Adam felt his limbs go numb as the oppressive force surrounded him. "It's not enough," Alyssa shouted, struggling to keep her grip on the orb. "It's draining me." Without warning, a sharp pain cut through Adam's chest. It felt as though something were trying to rip his soul apart. The orb in his hand flared again, its power surging wildly as it attempted to break free from the curses. "Hold!" Alyssa gasped, her voice ragged with exhaustion. "Adam, we can't keep this up." The pain intensified, and Adam screamed in agony as the orb reacted to the surge of darkness, nearly slipping from his hands. Then, the realization struck him with the force of a blow. They were going to have to make a sacrifice. The curse wasn't just going to be defeated, had to be sealed away, and the only way to do that was for someone to become the curse's anchor once again. The orb pulsed in his hands, and he knew, without a doubt, that he had to make the choice. If they wanted to save the world, one of them would have to bind themselves to the portal, become the curse's eternal guardian. His breath quickened as the voices of the curse swirled around him, murmuring promises of power and eternity. They wanted him to give in, to become one of them. But the truth was clear now. To stop the curse, he would have to sacrifice himself. "Alyssa, I'm sorry." Adam's voice was barely a whisper as he began to understand what needed to happen. Her eyes widened. "What are you saying, Adam?" The orb's energy began to reach for him. There was no time left. "I have to do this." Cliffhanger. Before Alyssa could protest, the orb's light surged, and the ground beneath their feet shattered. The curse was ripping everything apart. Adam's hand trembled as he reached for the heart of the portal, prepared to sacrifice everything to save them. Would he be able to seal the curse, or would it claim him in the end? The world was falling apart around Adam as the orb pulsed with an energy so bright it nearly blinded him. The curse, now fully awake and raging, surged from the rift like a storm, howling in fury, seeking to tear them apart. Every second felt like a lifetime, the weight of what Adam was about to do pressing down on him with unbearable force. Alyssa's voice echoed through the chaos, her hands outstretched toward him. "Adam, no. You can't." But Adam was already beyond words. The orb in his hands was now glowing with the energy of the portal, its light spiraling and twisting as though it had a mind of its own. The voices of the curse whispered frantically in his mind, coaxing him, promising unimaginable power. Immortality, freedom from the suffering of mortality. It would all be his if he simply gave in. But Adam knew the truth. Ata didn't want him, it wanted to use him. It didn't care about freedom or power. It only craved the consumption of everything. If he didn't act now, everything would be lost. The world, Alyssa, Yarrick, everyone would be consumed by the curse. "This is the only way, Alyssa," Adam whispered, his voice breaking, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision. "I have to do this, ... too," Stop it from destroying us all. Alyssa's face contorted with fear and disbelief. She reached out again, her fingers brushing against his arm. Adam, please. There's still time. We can fight this together. There's always a way. Don't do it. But Adam couldn't explain. Words couldn't convey the certainty that had settled within him. The knowledge that only by giving himself could they sever the curse's hold forever. The orb's energy was now wrapping around him, binding him to the heart of the portal. He could feel its power coursing through his veins, and in that moment, a part of him wanted to let go, to give in, to accept the curse's offer of eternal darkness, but he resisted. "I'm sorry, Alyssa," he said, his voice barely a whisper. He reached for her one last time, holding her hand tightly. "You have to survive. You have to stop it, finish what I started." Alyssa's eyes were wide, tears shimmering in the light of the orb. "Don't leave me, Adam. We can figure this out together. Please." The tendrils of the curse were closing in, and Adam could feel the world around him shudder as the portal's power reached its peak. There was no more time. He had already made his choice. With a final, agonizing pull, Adam stepped forward into the rift. The orb in his hands flared brightly, its light blinding as the curse tried to claim him, but he didn't let go. Instead, he focused every ounce of willpower, every drop of strength into closing the portal, into severing the link between the curse and the bloodstone. For a moment, there was only light. A deafening roar filled his ears as the darkness tried to crush him, to consume him whole. But he didn't flinch. He focused, and with a final cry of defiance, he sacrificed himself to the portal. A flash of light erupted, followed by an explosion of energy that knocked everyone to the ground. The darkness seemed to collapse inward, the swirling tendrils disappearing into the rift, until there was nothing left but silence. When the dust cleared, Alyssa and Jarek slowly rose to their feet. They were battered, bruised, but alive. Air around them was still. The oppressive weight of the curse finally lifted. The portal, once a gaping rift of darkness, was now a mere faint shimmer in the Ariscar, a remnant of what had once been. Alyssa's chest heaved as she looked. Around her eyes, desperately searching for Adam. Adam. Her voice cracked. Adam. But there was no answer. The rift was empty now, silent. Jarek stood beside her, his expression grim. "It's over," he said softly. "He did it. He stopped it." Alyssa's heart ached as she looked at the space. Where Adam had been, his sacrifice had saved them all, but the pain of losing him was unbearable. She collapsed to her knees, her tears falling freely as she whispered his name. "We owe him everything," Jarek said, his voice thick with emotion. He placed a hand on her shoulder, offering what little comfort he could. Adam knew what needed to be done. He knew the risk. Alyssa wiped her tears away and stood, her body trembling. "I can't believe he's gone." Jarek nodded solemnly. "He wasn't just fighting for himself, Alyssa. He was fighting for all of us. For everyone." Alyssa stared at the now still portal, her heart heavy with grief and gratitude. She knew Jarek was right. Adam had made the ultimate sacrifice, choosing to close the rift and sever the curse's connection, knowing full well that it would cost him his life. He had saved Humaniton more than that. He had given them hope, a chance to rebuild. She closed her eyes, her mind filled with memories of their time together. Adam had been more than a hero. He had been a friend, a leader, and someone she could count on even when the world seemed lost. Alyssa stepped forward, her gaze fixed on the now calm rift. He didn't die in vain. We have to honor him. We have to make sure his sacrifice wasn't for nothing. Jarek gave her a nod, his face set with determination. "You're right. We'll make sure of it. We'll rebuild it. We'll make sure the curse never returns." Together, they turned away from the rift, leaving behind the ruins that had once threatened to swallow them whole. The world had been saved, but their journey was far from over. They would face new challenges, new threats, but they would do it together, carrying Adam's legacy with them as a reminder of the sacrifice made to ensure their survival. Epilogue. As the days passed, the ruins were sealed off and the world slowly began to recover. Alyssa and Yarrick returned to their people, determined to rebuild and protect their future. The memory of Adam's courage lived on in their hearts, a symbol of the hero who had given everything to save them all. The curse was no more, and humanity, though scarred by the ordeal, had finally been freed from its grasp. The end.